Good morning. Well, today, Ghost and I are going to show you a few of my dioramas that basically what I've done is I've tried to incorporate storytelling into each of them. And, it's done really well for me, I think. What it does is it helps with the engagement. When you have a story in your diorama, people are a little bit more engaged with it because they can see little pieces of the story that you're trying to tell. They can see where people are interacting. And those are some of the things that I do to make sure that the people that are viewing the dioramas, at a show or whatever, are sticking around a little bit, because that's what you want. When you put all that time and effort to put a model on the table at a show or something like that, you're hoping that people will look at it and appreciate it and see the work that you've done. So I think that by adding storytelling, that's one element or one way to draw people in and make them look a little bit longer and appreciate what you've done. So the first thing that I do, and I got a little list here, the first thing I do is I try to draw the eye. If you're sitting on a table, think of your model or diorama sitting on a table, and it just doesn't bring you in, it doesn't draw you in, chances are people aren't going to come over to see it. And that's really what I think about. Looking at my dioramas here, they're all, not all, but mostly of them are on stands. I try to make a nice presentation for it. Over here, and I've got just a bunch of different dioramas out here. This is a very early diorama that I did, and it barely had a story, but even back then I tried to put a story in it. But you see, there's no base, and I see a lot of dioramas at shows like this. It's just painted signs. There's nothing wrong with it. It's meant to, show that this little scene has been just basically plucked out of reality. And I love that look. I use that look on all my dioramas. But I think that when you're trying to grab someone's attention, you're trying to bring them over to your model, this might be a little bit more. So making a stand, giving it an appearance, it looks maybe very finished. That can help. Ghost is highly interested in our conversation. So that's one of the things that I do. I put stands on them. Now, this wasn't planned, but one of the things that my stands did, because I'm a woodworker and I was having a wonderful time. So I started making these stands big and elaborate. Now, there was a really good reason behind that. It wasn't just, I need to, do this, though I kind of need to do woodworking. When I started building these little rooms inside my dioramas, I noticed that people had to kind of get down to look into them. So I decided, gosh, I'm mumbling, to build these stands. These stands lift them up so that it's a little easier to see. So you don't have to bend down. I mean, I had people getting on their knees to see these things. And I was like, no, can't happen. So by putting them on these stands, it allowed people to see them a little easier when they're on the tables and stuff like that. But let's walk over here. It also made it so these darn things were huge. And so they would really stand above the other models that might be on the table. So height became an advantage. Going vertical became something that was somewhat of a method that I used in my dioramas. It was not just to grab attention. I don't build my dioramas to go to a show. But I realize a lot of people do. And so that's why I'm giving these tips. I did the height because I liked it. I thought it was neat with all this stuff underneath it. And that's one of the other things I'm going to say. Do something that you don't see necessarily a lot. And that goes without saying. I think everybody's looking to maybe make their diorama a little bit different than someone else's. But think of the structures. Think about how it is presented. Think about, really doing something with your display that integrates with your model, your diorama. And I think that adds a lot to it as well. So here I've got some Germans down in the actual display, and this thing stands on the floor. Now, Cautionary tale. It's really hard to display this at a show with the legs and the base and all that kind of stuff. So I did it because I love the idea. Somebody suggested it when I was building. I'm like, man, I got to do that. But it's not a great idea to come in with like a freestanding diorama to a show. People look at you like you're a moron. Okay, so one of the other things that I really try to do in my dioramas to make them stand out, to make them engaging, other than, putting a story in it like I've been telling you, is in creating that story, I want to fill everything around it with the atmosphere that enhances that story. And that kind of goes without saying in a diorama. It's all about scenery and putting stuff behind it, but I think it goes a little bit further than that. When you're looking in or in for mine, because I do these rooms, when you're looking in there, everything in there shouldn't be, okay, it's a military diorama, so let's put a bunch of military stuff in there. No, you need to show what they do with those things. All of the things that you surround your figures or your models with have to be used. They have to be needed. They have to be necessary. They have to show what they're doing. The surroundings, the atmosphere, the atmosphere that you put around these figures, it grounds them. It gives them a place. It says where they are. It says what they're doing. The things, the details, the little things that you add to your scenery, those show what activities have been going on in that room. And that helps establish what the people are doing in the room. It establishes what is happening in the trench. So the atmosphere, the surroundings, it's not just terrain or details or, like books or maps or something like that. They need to match what the people are supposed to be doing in that area. And that makes it realistic. That makes people believe it. They shouldn't be calling it out. They shouldn't say, hey, look at that book over there. That means it looks out of place. It should be natural. It should be fading into the background, but supporting the figures and the model that you're trying to show. So make sure that you create that atmosphere around them with details. And that's really what you do with atmosphere. It's just details. It's all the set dressing, if you will, that goes around your primary vehicle, your primary figures, the story you're trying to get across. So make sure you have that atmosphere in there. One of the other things that I try to do, and it's very subtle, but I think that it's really something that helps a diorama, is showing a mood or setting a mood or giving some indication of a mood. And certainly you can do that with the expressions that are on the figures' faces. But I think there's other ways to do it. You can do it with lighting. You can do it with how people are, posed, shoulders down. And if you think you can't pose these figures, if you think you can't modify them to give expression or change the expression from the way that they came in, you absolutely 100% can. And I've done it quite a bit. On this model or diorama here, there's like 39 figures. And I would say 30 of them were modified. And by that, you're modifying slight things, how they hold their hands, the direction that they're looking. In this instance, this guy's got no cap. Well, he had a flat head when I started. You know how model figures are. They have flat heads so you can put a hat on them. Well, I added a skull. And, there's a little bit more character to that guy now. He's balding and not wearing a hat. Most times in the military figures that you find, they're wearing hats. Well, I've modified mine in some instances not to wear hats. It gives a little bit different look to the figure. And hopefully by modifying your figure, by filling in the area around them, you give a better indication of what their job is, what they're doing, and that's depth. That's setting the mood. It gives you atmosphere. When you're putting all your figures in and you're trying to figure out how to place them and stuff like that. Think about making connections. Connections are what figures do to communicate. Now, when I say figures, I mean characters. And when I say characters, I mean people. So if I'm building a story in here and I have someone, anyone, aside from these people right here, the 4 people that are paying, rapt attention to the guy giving the briefing here, if there was somebody moving around in the back or just doing something else, that would take attention away from the guy that's giving the briefing. That would make it look like it's just not that important. If someone in the background was doing something else, that would take the tension away from the rapt attention that they're giving the guy that's giving the briefing. And so that's what I mean by making sure that you hit your mark and you put your things in the right place. I had other figures. I could have put more in there just because it looks like it needs more people in there. It's a big room. But it would have messed with the story. See what my point is? Up here, same kind of thing. I've got a trench. Now, this is supposed to be like 3 o'clock in the morning, so there's not a lot of people around. But I've got a trench, and I've got a single guy in a trench. That's something that I do a lot in my dioramas. I have a single person doing something, and when that single person is doing something, I want them to feel alone. And I want them to feel fear. This guy, I mean, there's an awful lot going on here, in this. But then right at the end, this one guy finds this ancient evil temple, underground burial place, scary, whatever. That guy feels alone. And again, that is something that I want in each of my dioramas. It brings emotion. And for people that can see it, you have to put it in a way that it try to communicate it to the person. This is the same way. This is a very long hallway in my Wolfenstein diorama. There's one guy at the end of a long hall, and he's getting attacked by what is the boss fight of the entire diorama, basically. But that feeling that I'm trying to get is desperation. I'm alone. There's no one else here to help me. It's dire. By doing things like that in my dioramas, what I'm trying to do is give someone who finds it, number one, a reward, because that's, I think, an important, little Easter eggs or something that's, someone's looking and they go, oh my gosh, look at this. They found it and their friends didn't. I think that's important. But also, little things that are maybe unexpected, they have to fit, but it's a little bit unexpected so that when you do find that little detail, when you do search around and find it, it's this little eureka moment. You found something. There's that little thrill. And hopefully, because I don't know when or where people are going to approach these dioramas at a show. Hopefully, though, those little surprises and those little things that are so personal and so intimate will connect you to this, so you'll look more. Because that's what I think about when I build my dioramas. I want to tell a story, and that story is for me. I keep a very, very tight control of that story, trying to make sure that it fits the entire diorama. And by doing that, I'm able to build and communicate that story much better. That is the purpose. If I'm not really concentrating on the story during the build, I can't expect anybody, when they're viewing it, to pick up on that story. And they don't have to pick up on the entire story that I'm telling. But I'm hoping that elements of it will appear to them, will make sense to them, and will have them looking a little bit further to discover other parts of it where they could possibly figure out the rest of the story. So that is what I do. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff, obviously, with storytelling, with your diorama. And I would love to talk to you more about it. And a lot of my videos are about storytelling because as I build my videos, that is such an integral part. I started from very, very early on. Remember my very first diorama, it came with an implied story with the 5 figures and the half track here. So that was the first time I thought, you know, I can make a story out of my dioramas, and that will give me better engagement, and that will be able to allow me to somehow communicate with the viewers and hopefully make it a more enjoyable experience for them and me as I see them observing my stuff, because that's really a thrill. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I have a bunch of more videos coming on this kind of thing. And if you're interested in storytelling, please tell me. I'd love to tell you more about it. And if you have ideas to improve how I do storytelling in my dioramas, gosh, throw them in there. I'm always trying to learn. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm going to get back to building. We'll see ya.